Play it, girl. Or did you forget how a real piano sounds, working in a place like this? Ilara's hands trembled, not from cold, but from a humiliation so profound it stole the air from her lungs. She was just a waitress, trying to make ends meet in a world designed for the privileged. But tonight, an arrogant millionaire's cruel whim would force her to confront a past she'd long buried, transforming a night of quiet servitude into a public spectacle where her hidden, breathtaking talent might just become her defiant voice, shocking everyone and igniting an unexpected fight for respect and a second chance at her own extraordinary destiny. Now, before we dive deeper, please subscribe to our channel. We share powerful, meaningful stories like this every day. And drop a comment below to let us know where you're watching from. Thank you so much. And now, let's get back to the story. Play it, girl! Or did you forget how a real piano sounds, working in a place like this? The words, slurred with an entitled indifference that cut deeper than any knife, hung in the opulent air of Blackwood Manor. Ilara Vance felt every syllable pierce through her thin black uniform, settling in her gut like a stone. Her hands, calloused from countless hours of carrying trays and scrubbing dishes, tightened around the polished silver tray she still held. It wasn't the weight of the empty champagne flutes that made her knuckles white, but the crushing burden of a shame she hadn't anticipated, a spotlight she desperately wished to avoid. 24 years old, and Ilara had learned that life rarely offered a gentle hand. Born and raised in Willow Creek, a town nestled between rolling hills and a winding river, where the rhythm of life was dictated by the seasons and the chime of the old church bell, she knew the value of hard work. Willow Creek was a place of porch swings and potlucks, where everyone knew your name, and often your struggles. Her father, a carpenter with hands as strong as his heart, had saved for years to buy her a battered upright piano when she was just 7. It was a gift that had defined her childhood, a sanctuary where melodies were woven from the threads of joy and sorrow. He'd passed when she was 17, leaving behind a legacy of love, a stack of overdue medical bills for her mother, and the unspoken weight of Lily's future. Lily, her younger sister, bright-eyed and brimming with an ambition Ilara had once shared, was her everything. Every dollar Ilara earned, whether from her primary job at the Gilded Spoon Bistro or the endless catering gigs like tonight's, was meticulously squirreled away for Lily's college fund. Juilliard had once whispered her name, a siren call to a dream that now felt as distant as a star, replaced by the immediate, undeniable reality of survival. Tonight's event was the 20th anniversary celebration for Sterling Innovations, Alistair Sterling's tech empire. Blackwood Manor, his estate, was a monument to wealth and power, cold and imposing. It sprawled across acres overlooking the churning Atlantic, a stark contrast to Willow Creek's gentle river. Inside, crystal chandeliers dripped light onto polished marble floors, reflecting the hushed conversations of power brokers and socialites. Their laughter, light and carefree, echoed hollowly in Ilara's ears as she navigated the crowded ballroom, her eyes trained on the empty spaces on her tray. Alistair Sterling, the man who had just spoken, was 60, impeccably tailored, with a gaze that could strip paint from a wall. He was known for his ruthless business acumen, a disdain for anything he deemed unrefined, and a bottomless capacity for self-importance. Ilara had had the misfortune of a brief encounter earlier in the evening when, navigating a tight turn near a cluster of chattering guests, a droplet of champagne had escaped to flutes and landed perilously close to his polished wingtip. His scowl had been chilling, his words sharp enough to draw blood without a touch. He hadn't forgotten, clearly. Now, Emboldened by champagne and the sheer weight of his own ego, he stood by the gleaming Steinway grand piano, a magnificent instrument that sat largely untouched in the grand ballroom, a mere decorative piece. Ilara, having momentarily paused near the archway, catching a rare breath of cool air from an open terrace door, had allowed her gaze to linger on the ivory keys. A phantom ache had stirred in her fingertips, a memory of forgotten melodies, a whisper of the music that once defined her. It was a weakness, a moment of unguarded vulnerability, and Sterling had pounced. He'd clapped his hands, a sharp, attention-grabbing sound. The hum of conversation softened, a ripple of curiosity passing through the crowd. "Attention, everyone!" Sterling's voice boomed, though it was slightly slurred. He pointed a diamond-ringed finger at Ilara, who felt every eye in the room turn to her. "This young lady," he continued, a sneer playing on his lips, "works diligently for us tonight. But I suspect she has other talents hidden from plain sight. Isn't that right, Ilara?" Ilara's breath caught. She had no idea how he knew her name, perhaps from the catering roster, but it felt like a violation. Her cheeks flushed scarlet. "Sir," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. "The piano, my dear," Sterling prompted, a cruel glint in his eyes. "I saw you looking at it. Such longing. Come, entertain us. A little background music from our talented staff. It would be amusing, wouldn't it, ladies and gentlemen?" A few polite, uncomfortable chuckles followed. Some guests shifted uneasily, but no one dared challenge Sterling. Ilara's heart hammered against her ribs. Refuse, and she'd likely be fired. Her reputation in this affluent circuit ruined, cutting off a crucial income stream for Lily's future. Comply and face the utter mortification of being forced to perform, her deepest passion reduced to a parlor trick for a man who saw her as little more than a servant. Her mind raced, a whirlwind of fear, anger, and a desperate primal urge to flee. This was not the kind of exposure she had ever dreamed of. This was a public execution of her dignity. Her eyes darted around the room. Faces ranged from mild curiosity to thinly veiled amusement, a few showing pity she recoiled from. No one would help. She was alone, trapped in this gilded cage. Every fiber of her being screamed protest, but the image of Lily's hopeful face, her textbooks, her dreams, held her rooted. She couldn't afford to walk away. With a silent, ragged breath, Ilara placed the tray carefully on a nearby side table. Her legs felt heavy, as if she were wading through thick mud, each step an monumental effort. She walked towards the Steinway, the sound of her own heartbeat deafening in her ears. The grand piano, a magnificent beast of polished wood and gleaming ivory, seemed to mock her, a symbol of a life she'd once envisioned. As she reached it, the air crackled with anticipation. Sterling, a triumphant smirk plastered on his face, gestured grandly towards the bench. "Go on, Ilara. Don't be shy." Her fingers, despite their trembling, felt a familiar pull towards the keys. This instrument, so perfect and pristine, was a world away from her father's old upright, its chipped keys and yellowed ivory a testament to a life well played. She sat, her back stiff, her gaze fixed on the expanse of black and white. The silence in the ballroom was absolute, heavy with the weight of expectation and her own rising dread. She lifted her hands, her mind a blank, a silent prayer forming on her lips. What would she play? How could she possibly find a song in this moment of profound injustice? And then, a whisper, a ghost of a melody from Willow Creek, a piece her father had taught her, stirred in the depths of her memory daring to resurface. Her fingers hovered over the keys, not yet touching them, but poised, as if on the precipice of a forgotten dream or a defiant declaration. The air in Blackwood Manor crackled with the unspoken challenge. Ilara's fingers, trembling not from fear now, but from a burgeoning, defiant energy, hovered over the Steinway's keys. She saw Sterling smirk, the polite, expectant faces of the guests, their eyes like 1,000 tiny needles. For a fleeting moment, panic threatened to engulf her. But then, a whisper from the past, a melody her father had often hummed, found its way from the depths of her memory to her fingertips. It wasn't a grand, showy piece, but a simple, heart-rending tune, a lullaby of sorts that her father had composed, filled with the promise of Willow Creek's gentle evenings and the quiet strength of enduring love. Her hands descended, hesitant at first, like a hesitant bird testing its wings. The first notes were soft, almost imperceptible, a tentative exploration of the instrument's rich tone. They spoke of quiet grief, of forgotten dreams, a poignant echo of the life she'd left behind. A few guests exchanged glances, perhaps expecting a clumsy amateur. Sterling leaned back, a smug look on his face, clearly anticipating her failure. But as Ilara continued, something shifted. The initial shyness gave way to a quiet power. Her father's melody, simple in its structure, began to unfold with an unexpected depth, each note imbued with the raw emotion of a soul laid bare. Her fingers, once accustomed to the worn, familiar keys of her childhood piano, found a new freedom on the Steinway, coaxing from it a warmth and resonance that stunned even herself. It wasn't about performing for Sterling anymore. It was about honoring her father, connecting with the purest part of herself, a defiant reclamation of her dignity. The hushed murmurs in the ballroom faded. Heads, once turned towards glittering conversations, now angled towards the piano. The tinkling of ice in glasses paused. The music wasn't just a sound. It was a story, told in a language that transcended the polite artifice of the evening. It spoke of long summer days, of resilience against hardship, of love that lingered long after goodbye. Ilara's eyes, fixed on the keys, were a kaleidoscope of emotion, sorrow, hope, and an unwavering strength. She wasn't just playing. She was channeling every heartbreak, every sacrifice, every unshed tear for Lily's future into the ebb and flow of the melody. Sterling, initially dismissive, straightened imperceptibly. His smile, fixed and disdainful, began to waver. He'd expected a joke, a spectacle of embarrassment, not this. The waitress, the girl who barely dared to meet his eye, was transforming the sterile opulence of his ballroom into a sanctuary of raw, undeniable beauty. He saw the way his most influential guests were captivated, their expressions shifting from polite indifference to genuine awe. This wasn't amusing, it was inconvenient. Among the crowd, a tall, thoughtful man in his early 30s, Elias Thorne, stood transfixed. Elias, a renowned music critic and curator from the city, was there purely as Sterling's distant acquaintance, a reluctant participant in the evening's hollow festivities. He'd been about to make his polite excuses when the first notes had drifted to him. He recognized not just technical proficiency, though it was certainly there, hidden beneath layers of dust, but something far rarer, authentic emotion. A soul pouring itself into the music. He saw the subtle nuances of her touch, the effortless phrasing, the way the melody swelled and retreated like the tide. This was no amateur. This was a prodigious talent, stifled perhaps, but undeniably potent. Who was she? And why was she serving drinks? Ilara, lost in the narrative of her music, felt a warmth spread through her. The music, a shield against the harsh judgment of the room, allowed her to breathe, to simply be. She closed her eyes for a fleeting second, feeling her father's presence, his strong hands guiding hers. The memory gave her strength, fueling a crescendo of passion that filled the grand hall, resonating with a power that left no one untouched. The final notes hung in the air, a delicate, lingering echo, before fading into an absolute, profound silence. For a beat, 2 beats, the room remained utterly still. No clinking of glasses, no whispers, just the lingering reverberations of Ilara's music. Then, a single clap, sharp and clear, cut through the silence. It came from Elias Thorne. He stood alone, his eyes still fixed on Ilara, his applause ringing out like a challenge. Within seconds, it was joined by another, then a smattering, and finally, a wave of genuine, appreciative applause swept through the ballroom. It wasn't the polite, obligatory clapping reserved for professional performers. It was the spontaneous, heartfelt recognition of something truly exceptional. Ilara's head lifted slowly. Her face, flushed from the exertion and emotion, held a fragile dignity. She saw the admiration, the surprise, the genuine warmth in many faces. She saw Elias Thorne, his gaze intense and knowing. And then her eyes met Sterling's. His jaw was clenched, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. The amusement had vanished, replaced by a cold, cutting anger. He had been outmaneuvered, his cruel jest turned into an unexpected triumph for the very person he sought to humiliate. "Remarkable," Sterling drawled, his voice laced with venom, though his words were technically praise. "Quite the hidden talent, Ilara. Perhaps you should stick to the piano instead of serving drinks. Though, of course," he added, a condescending smirk returning, "such talent doesn't quite pay the bills, does it?" He dismissed her with a wave of his hand, a clear signal that the entertainment was over, and she was to resume her servile duties. The applause quickly died down, uncomfortable silence replacing it. Ilara's shoulders slumped, the brief moment of triumph evaporating under the icy blast of his contempt. He was right. Talent, alone, didn't pay for Lily's tuition. It didn't put food on the table. She felt a familiar weight settle in her chest, the bitter reality of her circumstances crushing the fleeting hope that had dared to bloom. She stood from the bench, her legs still feeling wobbly, ready to retrieve her tray and fade back into the background, into the anonymity she craved. But as she turned, a shadow fell over her. Elias Thorne stood there, his presence commanding yet gentle. His eyes were kind, filled with an intensity that held her gaze. "Miss Vance," he said, his voice a low, resonant baritone. "That was extraordinary. Truly. I haven't heard such raw emotion in years." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the opulent room, then back to her. "I have a proposition for you, one that might just change everything you believe about what pays the bills. I have a proposition for you, one that might just change everything you believe about what pays the bills." Elias Thorne's words hung in the air, a lifeline thrown into the turbulent waters of Ilara's despair. Her heart, which had been a leaden weight moments before, now fluttered with a cautious, almost terrifying hope. She stared at him, unable to process. This man, refined and intelligent, was offering her something? Her mind, conditioned by years of struggle, immediately sought the catch. "A proposition?" she echoed, her voice thin and reedy, a stark contrast to the resonant tones of the piano she had just commanded. Elias's smile was gentle, his eyes reflecting a genuine warmth that was startlingly out of place in Sterling's cold manner. "Yes, Miss Vance. My name is Elias Thorne. I curate the annual Summer Arts Festival in the city, and I'm also a music critic. What I heard just now, it was extraordinary. Raw, powerful, technically brilliant. You have a gift, a truly rare one." He extended a hand. "I'd like to offer you a performance slot at the festival. It would be paid, of course, and a significant platform. It could open doors." Ilara stared at his outstretched hand, then back at his face, searching for any hint of mockery, any trace of the condescension she was so accustomed to. But there was none, only earnest conviction. Her thoughts raced, a dizzying kaleidoscope of emotions. The Summer Arts Festival, she knew of it. It was prestigious, attracting thousands, a launchpad for emerging artists. The idea was intoxicating, terrifying. "Sir, I'm just a waitress," she stammered, the words feeling like a betrayal of the music she had just played. "I haven't properly performed in years, and I have responsibilities. A sister." The ghost of Sterling's contemptuous words, "Such talent doesn't quite pay the bills," echoed in her mind. Elias lowered his hand, sensing her deep-seated hesitation. "I understand your skepticism, Miss Vance, but what I witnessed wasn't the performance of just a waitress. It was the soul of an artist. And as for responsibilities, this isn't a frivolous offer. The festival pays well for its artists, and the exposure alone is invaluable. It could be a pathway to something more sustainable, something worthy of your talent. A second chance, perhaps." The phrase, "second chance," resonated deep within her, stirring a long-buried ache. A second chance at music, at a life beyond the grind. A life where her passion wasn't a luxury, but a purpose. But the practicalities of her life were a heavy cloak, smothering any flicker of hope. Lily's tuition, the rent on their small two-bedroom house in Willow Creek, her mother's increasing medical expenses. These were her constants. A festival performance felt like a fairy tale. Beautiful, but ultimately unreal. Alistair Sterling, meanwhile, was observing the exchange from across the room. His eyes narrowed, a muscle twitching in his jaw. Elias Thorne was a respected figure, untouchable in his own right. Sterling couldn't openly intervene, but the sight of Ilara, the waitress, being courted by such a man, infuriated him. His cruel joke had backfired spectacularly, and now it seemed his humiliation of her had only served to elevate her. He would not forget. Ilara felt the weight of Sterling's gaze, a cold shiver running down her spine. It was a reminder of the power dynamics, the vast chasm between her world and theirs. "Mr. Thorne," she began, her voice gaining a little more strength. "I appreciate your kindness, truly, but I need stability. My sister Lily, she's my priority. Every penny I earn goes towards her future. A one-off performance, however grand, won't change that." Elias listened, his expression thoughtful. "I understand completely, Ilara. But this isn't necessarily a one-off. It's a stepping stone. And I assure you, the financial compensation for performing at the festival is substantial, enough to provide a cushion, at least for a while. We can discuss details, dates, and repertoire. Just give me a chance to explain properly. Meet me for coffee tomorrow, perhaps? My office is in the city, or I can drive out to Willow Creek if that's easier for you." The offer was so earnest, so devoid of the usual power plays she encountered, that Ilara found herself wavering. Coffee, a conversation. What could it hurt? Willow Creek, she said, almost impulsively. There's a small diner, the Daily Grind, just off Main Street. Around 11? She needed the familiarity of her own town, her own world, to process this unbelievable turn of events. Elias's face lit up. Perfect. I'll be there. Here's my card. He pressed a sleek, minimalist card into her hand. Think about it, Ilara. Think about what your music could mean. Not just for you, but for others. Sometimes, the greatest injustices can lead to the most unexpected triumphs. As Ilara walked away, the catering manager, a harried woman named Brenda, intercepted her. Ilara, where have you been? Sterling wants his cognac refilled. And what was that performance all about? You almost stopped the whole party. Brenda's tone was a mix of irritation and grudging awe. He asked me to play, Brenda, Ilara said, her voice flat. She retrieved her tray, the metallic clink a harsh return to reality. The weight of the world settled back onto her shoulders, heavier now with the tantalizing, almost cruel glimmer of a dream. She spent the rest of the evening moving through the glittering crowd, serving drinks, clearing plates, her hands now carrying not just champagne flutes, but the impossible weight of Elias's proposition and Sterling's simmering anger. Every time she passed the piano, she felt its silent call, a siren song of what might be. The long drive back to Willow Creek was a blur. The opulent grandeur of Blackwood Manor slowly receded into the night, replaced by the comforting, familiar darkness of rural roads. When she finally unlocked the door to her small house, the silence was profound. Lily was asleep, curled up in her bed, a book open on her chest. Ilara watched her for a moment, the fierce, protective love for her sister swelling in her chest. Everything she did was for Lily. Could this impossible musical dream, truly be a path to a better future for them both? Or was it just a distraction, a cruel tease from a world she didn't belong to? She peeled off her uniform, the black fabric feeling like a shroud. As she tossed it onto the laundry pile, something fell from her pocket. It was Elias Thorne's business card. It felt solid, real, a tiny beacon in the darkness. She picked it up, her fingers tracing the embossed letters. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. But then, her phone, buzzing on the counter, startled her. It was a text message from an unknown number. Her breath hitched as she read the single, chilling line. Some dreams are best left buried, Ilara, especially when you owe someone a debt. The message was unsigned, but she knew with a cold certainty that turned her blood to ice exactly who it was from. The world of Alistair Sterling, it seemed, was not quite ready to let her go. Some dreams are best left buried, Ilara, especially when you owe someone a debt. The words seared themselves into Ilara's mind, a chilling echo of Alistair Sterling's vindictive nature. She stared at the phone, her heart thudding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The hope Elias Thorne had ignited just moments before flickered, threatened by the cold shadow of this unseen threat. A debt? What debt? Her mind raced, sifting through every interaction, every perceived slight from the night. The champagne droplet near his shoe, his ruined amusement. She knew Sterling was petty, but this was beyond simple revenge. This was a veiled menace, a promise of deeper trouble. She crumpled the catering uniform, as if trying to crush the memory of Blackwood Manor along with it. Sleep was impossible. She paced her small living room, the quiet hum of the refrigerator the only sound. The weight of Sterling's power was palpable, even miles away in the comforting embrace of Willow Creek. He was a man who saw the world as his chessboard, and Alara, a humble pawn, had dared to make an unexpected move. This wasn't just about music anymore. It was about survival, about protecting the fragile peace she had painstakingly built for herself and Lily. The next morning, the soft glow of dawn did little to dispel the unease clinging to her. She watched Lily sleep, her younger sister's face peaceful, oblivious. Lily was the reason Alara fought every day. The thought of anything jeopardizing Lily's future, their future, filled her with a fierce, protective resolve. She decided, with a grim determination, that she would still meet Elias. She needed to understand his offer, to gauge if this glimmer of hope was worth risking Sterling's wrath. The daily grind was a comforting haven of worn wood and the scent of brewing coffee. Its windows offered a view of Willow Creek's main street, where life unfolded with a gentle, predictable pace. Alara arrived early, nursing a lukewarm mug of herbal tea, her gaze constantly flitting towards the door. The text message still haunted her, a phantom grip around her throat. Elias Thorne arrived precisely at 11, a striking figure in tailored casual wear, a stark contrast to the small-town diner. His eyes, when they met hers, held the same calm intensity as the night before. "Alara," he greeted, his voice warm. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." As they settled into a booth, Elias wasted no time. "I truly believe you have a rare gift, Alara. That piece you played, it was hauntingly beautiful. It spoke of deep feeling, of a story. Do you have more?" Alara hesitated, then nodded. "My father, he composed many pieces. I learned them all, and I used to compose too when I had time." The words felt strange, almost foreign after so long. "Excellent," Elias said, a genuine excitement in his voice. "The festival is in 2 months. That gives us time to select a program, perhaps even refine some of your own compositions. The main stage offers incredible acoustics and a packed house. It's a moment that could launch your career. And the fee—" He named a figure that made Alara's breath catch in her throat. It was more than she earned in 6 months of waitressing and catering combined. Enough to cover Lily's tuition for a year, with enough left over for a significant buffer. Her heart pounded. It was a staggering sum, a life-changing opportunity. But the shadow of Sterling still loomed. "Mr. Thorne," she began, her voice low, "there's something you should know. Last night, Alistair Sterling sent me a text message, a warning. He said I owe him a debt, and that some dreams are best left buried." She watched his face carefully, searching for any sign of doubt, any flicker of withdrawal. Elias's expression hardened. His eyes lost their warmth, replaced by a steely resolve. "Alistair Sterling. I should have guessed he wouldn't let that go. He's a vindictive man, Alara, used to absolute control. He views anyone who challenges his perceived authority, even inadvertently, as an enemy." He paused, his gaze meeting hers directly. "Let me be clear. I am not intimidated by Sterling, and you, Alara, should not be either. He has no claim on your talent, no right to dictate your future." "But what debt could he be talking about?" Alara pressed, a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. "I work hard. I pay my way. I haven't done anything to him, except perhaps play his piano better than he expected." Elias leaned forward, his voice dropping. "Sterling's methods are often subtle. He has a vast network and a reputation for leveraging influence to crush perceived threats. He might try to blacklist you from future catering gigs, spread rumors, or worse, find some obscure manufactured debt through his legal team. He's done it before. He revels in demonstrating his power. Elias took a sip of his coffee, his expression thoughtful. But this is precisely why you need this opportunity, Ilara. To rise above him. To show him that your worth isn't dictated by his whims, and that true talent, once unleashed, cannot be suppressed. His words struck a chord, a deep truth she instinctively recognized. Elias wasn't just offering a stage, he was offering a shield, a pathway to true independence. "What about the practicalities?" she asked, her voice still laced with doubt. "Rehearsal space? An actual piano? I haven't played on a concert-level instrument since I was a teenager." Elias smiled. "I have connections. There's a community music center in the city with excellent practice rooms and a dedicated Steinway. I can arrange access for you, perhaps 3 times a week. I'll even personally help you secure transportation. Consider it a small investment in a talent I genuinely believe in." The offer was too good to be true, yet Elias's sincerity was undeniable. He wasn't just being kind, he was genuinely invested. He saw something in her that she had almost forgotten herself. The thought of playing again, truly playing, on a magnificent instrument, without fear or judgment, was a powerful pull. The image of Lily, bright-eyed and dreaming, flashed in her mind. This wasn't just about Ilara. It was about breaking a cycle, creating a new path for both of them. "Okay," Ilara said, the word coming out with a surprising rush of breath. "Okay, Mr. Thorne, I'll do it. I'll play at the festival." A wave of relief, mixed with a healthy dose of fear, washed over her. Elias's face lit up. "Call me Elias, please. And Ilara, this is just the beginning. The journey won't be easy. Sterling won't give up. He might try to stop you, to discredit you, but we'll face it together. Your music will be your armor." He reached across the table, shaking her hand firmly. "Welcome back to the world of music, Ilara." As Ilara walked home, the vibrant main street of Willow Creek seemed to hum with a new energy. The sun felt warmer, the air fresher. A path, however treacherous, had opened before her. But the sense of exhilaration was tempered by a growing unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that Sterling's text wasn't just a petty threat. It was a promise, a declaration of war. And the exact nature of this debt still remained a terrifying mystery, a ticking clock hidden somewhere in her past, waiting to explode. Just as she approached her house, a sleek black car, too expensive for Willow Creek, slowly cruised past, its tinted windows obscuring the driver. It slowed, then stopped a block down, lingering. Ilara felt a chill, a primal certainty that she was being watched. The battle, it seemed, had already begun. The sleek black car idled for a long moment down the street, its tinted windows offering no glimpse of its occupant. Ilara's breath hitched in her throat, a cold knot forming in her stomach. Then, as silently as it had arrived, it pulled away, disappearing around the bend. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that it was a message. A stark, unspoken warning from Alistair Sterling. He wasn't just threatening, he was watching. The next few days blurred into a grueling rhythm. Ilara maintained her shifts at the Gilded Spoon, her hands moving mechanically through the familiar tasks of waiting tables, clearing plates, and plastering on a polite smile for demanding customers. But now, every spare moment, every ounce of her mental energy was devoted to the festival. Elias had indeed delivered on his promise. He arranged for her to use a practice room at the city's community music center 3 times a week. The room, though modest, held a beautiful, well-maintained Steinway grand, a world away from the battered upright in her living room. Getting there was an odyssey. A borrowed car from a kind neighbor, long bus rides, juggling Lily's school schedule with her own. It was exhausting, a constant battle against fatigue and self-doubt. Yet, the moment her fingers touched the keys of that concert grand, the exhaustion melted away, replaced by an intoxicating surge of purpose. The music poured out of her, sometimes hesitant, sometimes forceful, but always deeply felt. She revisited her father's compositions, pieces imbued with the soul of Willow Creek, and slowly, timidly, began to explore her own half-forgotten melodies, tunes born of quiet evenings and unspoken yearnings. Elias was a constant, supportive presence. He'd drop by her practice sessions, listening with a discerning ear, offering gentle encouragement rather than harsh criticism. He helped her choose a program, blending her father's folk-inspired melodies with some of her more classical compositions, weaving a narrative that was uniquely Ilara's. Their conversations often strayed beyond music, touching on the nature of ambition, sacrifice, and the often cruel realities of the art world. He understood her anxieties about Lily, her fear of not being enough, of failing. "Talent is a fire, Ilara," Elias had said one afternoon, watching her hands dance across the keys. "But courage is the wind that makes it burn. Sterling wants to extinguish your fire. Don't let him." His belief in her was a balm, a lifeline, but it couldn't entirely erase the gnawing fear. The text message and the black car were constant reminders, and then the first direct hit came. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Ilara was midway through her shift at the Gilded Spoon, balancing a tray of steaming pasta, when Brenda, the catering manager, called her into her office. Brenda, usually bustling and flustered, looked unusually grim. "Ilara, I have some bad news," she began, avoiding eye contact. "Mr. Henderson, the owner, just got off the phone with Alistair Sterling's office. Apparently a significant donation to the local children's hospital, which Mr. Henderson is heavily involved in, depends on a certain misunderstanding being rectified." Ilara felt the blood drain from her face. "What kind of misunderstanding, Brenda?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Brenda sighed, wringing her hands. "He didn't specify, but he made it clear that the Gilded Spoon needs to streamline its staff, particularly anyone with distractions that might reflect poorly on the establishment's professional image. And it seems your recent performance at Blackwood Manor, however talented, has been deemed a significant distraction." "Ilara, I'm so sorry. Mr. Henderson had no choice. You're fired." The word hung in the air, cold and definitive. Fired, just like that. The stability, the steady income she relied on for Lily, ripped away in an instant. This was Sterling's debt in action, a calculated strike at her most vulnerable point. Brenda, clearly uncomfortable, tried to offer platitudes. "It's nothing personal, Ilara. You're a wonderful worker. But Sterling, he has a lot of influence." Ilara walked out of Brenda's office in a daze, the familiar bustle of the bistro suddenly alien and hostile. Her hands, which had been so alive on the piano keys just yesterday, now felt empty, useless. She tried to maintain her composure, to not let the tremor in her hands show as she cleared her last table. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. How could she tell Lily? How would she make ends meet now? The festival, with its promise of a huge payout, was still 2 months away. 2 months of no income. The thought was a suffocating weight. She called Elias from a payphone outside the bistro, her voice trembling. He listened patiently, his anger palpable even through the phone line. He's playing dirty, Alara. This confirms it. But it also confirms how threatened he feels by you. He wouldn't go to these lengths for a minor annoyance. Threatened? Alara scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. He's just reminding me of my place, Elias. My place is without a job, worried sick about how to feed my sister, while he sits in his mansion, pulling strings like a puppet master. No, Elias countered, his voice firm. Your place is on that stage, sharing your gift. This is a setback, a significant one, I know. But it's also a test. Do not let him win this way, Alara. We'll find a solution for the interim. I'll help you. But you cannot give up on the festival. That is how you truly defy him. His resolve was unwavering, but Alara felt a profound exhaustion settle into her bones. The fight felt too big, too overwhelming. She walked home, the vibrant colors of Willow Creek muted by the gray pallor of her despair. Lily would be home soon, bubbling with stories from school. How could she crush her sister's spirit with this news? As she approached her house, a small hand-addressed envelope lay tucked under her doormat. No stamp, no return address. Her heart hammered again. It felt too deliberate. Inside, on expensive stationery, was a single, elegantly typed line. Some debts must always be paid. The collateral can be quite personal. There was no signature, but the message was clear. It wasn't just about her job. It was about something far deeper, something that threatened not just her dreams, but perhaps even Lily. The final words sent a chill so profound through her that she could barely breathe. The collateral. What collateral? And what debt could be so deeply entrenched that it could threaten the very person she lived for? The familiar scent of her home, usually a comfort, now felt like a fragile shield against an unseen, escalating terror. Some debts must always be paid. The collateral can be quite personal. The words echoed in Alara's mind, a cold, insidious whisper. The crumpled note felt like a venomous insect in her trembling hand. Personal collateral. The phrase conjured terrifying images, and her first visceral thought was of Lily. What could Alistair Sterling possibly mean? What debt could be so deeply rooted that it would threaten her sister? Panic, cold and raw, seized her. She felt exposed, vulnerable, as if the walls of her small, comforting home had suddenly dissolved, leaving her bare to a predatory gaze. She called Elias immediately, her voice tight with fear. He listened, his tone grim. He's escalating, Alara. This isn't just about humiliating you anymore. This is about control, about making an example. And hinting at personal collateral is a classic intimidation tactic. It's designed to sow fear, to make you withdraw. But we need to understand what he means by debt. Did your family ever have any dealings with Sterling? Business, property, anything at all? Alara racked her brain, her thoughts a frantic whirlwind. No, never. My father was a carpenter, a simple man. My mother, a homemaker. We lived in this house our whole lives. We don't have anything to do with people like Sterling. Unless it has something to do with my father's accident? Her voice trailed off, a new chilling possibility emerging from the depths of her subconscious. Her father's death 7 years ago had been sudden, tragic, a fall from a construction site. The company had settled quickly, quietly, too quietly, perhaps. The accident, Elias mused, his voice thoughtful. That's a possibility. A large corporation, a quick settlement. It could be a leverage point for Sterling if he somehow acquired the original details, or even if he's just using it as a fabrication. But we need to verify. Do you have any of your father's old papers? Any records from the settlement? Ilara felt a flicker of hope amidst the dread. I think so. My mother kept everything. Boxes in the attic. But she's unwell. Her memory isn't what it used to be. It would be hard for her to explain. Then we'll go through them together, Elias said, his voice firm. This isn't just about your music anymore, Ilara. It's about uncovering the truth and protecting your family. I'll drive to Willow Creek first thing tomorrow morning. Don't touch anything until I get there. The rest of the evening was a blur of heightened anxiety. Lily, sensing her sister's unease, stayed close, her innocent chatter a stark contrast to the storm brewing in Ilara's heart. It broke Ilara's heart to hide her fear from Lily, but she couldn't allow her sister to shoulder this burden. As soon as Lily was asleep, Ilara sat by the old upright piano, not to play, but to stare at it, a symbol of her father's love, now potentially intertwined with a sinister past. Elias arrived promptly the next morning, a stack of legal pads and a determined look on his face. He greeted Lily warmly, his calm demeanor providing a much-needed anchor amidst Ilara's churning emotions. After Lily left for school, they made their way to the attic, a dusty, forgotten realm filled with the echoes of their family's past. Boxes crammed with old photographs, faded clothes, and forgotten toys lined the cramped space. They meticulously sifted through the boxes. Old report cards, bundled letters, holiday decorations, childhood drawings. Each item a bittersweet memory. Then, in a sturdy wooden chest tucked away in a corner, Ilara found it. A small, padlocked metal box, its surface rusted with age. Her father's important papers box. With a jolt, Ilara remembered the tiny key her mother always kept on a chain around her neck, now tucked away in a jewelry box in her dresser. She retrieved it, her hands trembling as she inserted it into the lock. It clicked open with a soft metallic sound, revealing a stack of documents, brittle with age. Among them were bank statements, insurance policies, and crucially, a thick envelope labeled Accident Settlement, Vance versus Sterling Construction. Ilara and Elias exchanged a look. Sterling Construction. Not Sterling Innovations, Alistair's tech company, but undoubtedly connected. The plot thickened, a chilling link forged between her father's tragic death and the millionaire's venomous vendetta. Elias carefully pulled out the documents. They meticulously reviewed the pages, Elias's keen eyes scanning the legal jargon, Ilara's heart sinking with each revelation. Her father had been a subcontractor on a major construction project, owned by Sterling Construction. The accident had been caused by faulty scaffolding. The settlement, while substantial at the time, was less than a fraction of what her father's life and their family's subsequent struggles were truly worth. But the most damning detail lay buried in a confidential addendum, a non-disclosure agreement signed by her mother, promising eternal silence about the details of the accident and the settlement in exchange for an expedited payment to cover urgent medical bills and funeral costs. "This is it," Elias said, his voice grave. "This is Sterling's leverage, the non-disclosure agreement. Your mother signed away her right to speak about the accident or the settlement. If she or anyone else broke that silence, the settlement could be clawed back, or they could face legal action for breach of contract. And the company that owned Sterling Construction back then? It was owned by Alistair Sterling's father. Alistair would have inherited the company and its liabilities, eventually consolidating it under his empire. Ilara felt a cold dread spread through her. So, if I speak out, if I push back, he could use this? He could try to take back the money, accuse my mother of a breach. She's too fragile for that, Elias. And the money? It's long gone, used to raise us, to cover Lily's early education, my mother's medical bills. Precisely, Elias confirmed, his face grim. He's not just threatening your music, Ilara. He's threatening to dismantle your family's financial security, to open old wounds. This is his power play. He's betting you'll back down, that the fear of losing everything will force you into silence. Ilara looked at the documents, her father's elegant signature a stark contrast to the legalistic terms of the agreement. Her father, a man of integrity, had been crushed by the machine of corporate power, and his family silenced, bought off, and now, 7 years later, the ghost of that injustice had returned, weaponized by Sterling. "What do I do?" Ilara whispered, the weight of the past and the threat of the present pressing down on her. "If I go through with the festival, if I gain any public attention, he could use this. He could expose my mother, hurt Lily." Elias met her gaze, his eyes filled with a quiet strength. "You fight, Ilara. You fight with the only weapon he doesn't understand. Your truth. We need to be smart, strategic. We need to understand the full implications of this agreement. I have a trusted legal colleague, a pro bono lawyer specializing in social justice cases, who could review this. He might find a loophole, a weakness in Sterling's position." Ilara felt a flicker of resolve amidst the fear. Fight. The word resonated deep within her. She had spent her life running, hiding, suppressing her dreams to protect her family. But now, with Sterling targeting Lily, the stakes had changed. The music, which had once been a source of solitary joy, now felt like a battle cry. But the fight would be dangerous, uncertain, and with every step closer to the truth, she knew, the target on her back would only grow larger. She looked at Elias, a silent question in her eyes. Could they truly win against such a powerful, ruthless man? And what would be the true cost of their defiance? Could they truly win against such a powerful, ruthless man? And what would be the true cost of their defiance? The questions hung heavy in the air, a silent acknowledgement of the daunting battle ahead. Ilara stared at the non-disclosure agreement, its words a cold legal straitjacket around her family's past. Elias, sensing her fear, gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "We won't know unless we try, Ilara. But we won't go into this blindly. My friend, Marcus Finch, he's exceptional. He believes in justice, not just the letter of the law. He'll give us an honest assessment." The next few days were a whirlwind of emotional and practical challenges. Ilara threw herself into her music with a renewed ferocity, each note a punch against Sterling's oppressive shadow. The practice room at the community center became her sanctuary, her battlefield. She honed her technique, refined her compositions, and poured every ounce of her fear, anger, and hope into the melodies. Lily, still unaware of the looming threat, noticed her sister's renewed vigor. "You sound amazing, Ilara. Like you're playing for the whole world," she exclaimed one evening, a simple comment that both uplifted and terrified Ilara. Elias arranged the meeting with Marcus Finch, a sharp-witted, unassuming man with eyes that missed nothing. They met in Marcus's modest city office, far removed from the grandeur of Sterling's world. Marcus reviewed the documents, his brow furrowed in concentration. The silence in the room was palpable, punctuated only by the rustle of papers. Finally, Marcus looked up, pushing his glasses up his nose. "This is a standard NDA for a wrongful death settlement," he began, his voice calm and precise. "It's ironclad in its intent, to silence the victim's family and protect the company's reputation. And the penalty for breach is severe: repayment of the settlement, plus damages. However, he paused, a glimmer of light in his eyes. There's a crucial element missing here: the accident report, the initial investigation into the faulty scaffolding. Is there any indication that Sterling Construction actively suppressed or altered evidence? Ilara and Elias exchanged a look. We haven't seen an official accident report, Ilara admitted. Only the summary provided by the insurance company during the settlement. Exactly, Marcus said, tapping a pen against the document. NDAs are legally binding, but they can be challenged, particularly if they were signed under duress, or if there was a deliberate withholding or manipulation of information by the other party. If Sterling Construction knowingly concealed evidence of gross negligence or criminal misconduct, then this NDA could potentially be rendered null and void. And that, Ilara, would completely change the game. Hope, tentative but real, surged through Ilara. So there's a chance? A chance, Marcus confirmed. But it requires evidence. We need to find that original accident report, or proof of its suppression. It won't be easy. Sterling has deep pockets and even deeper connections. He'll fight dirty. But if we can prove they covered up details, then not only would your mother be free to speak, but Sterling Construction could face new, devastating legal consequences. It could unravel his entire carefully constructed empire. The magnitude of what Marcus was suggesting took Ilara's breath away. Not just freedom, but accountability. But how could they find a report buried for 7 years, likely by a powerful corporation? Where do we even begin to look? She asked, the practicalities once again asserting themselves. The old Willow Creek Building Department, Elias suggested. Accident reports on local construction sites would have been filed there. Even if Sterling tried to bury it, a copy might still exist in the archives. The idea was a long shot, a needle in a haystack, but it was a concrete lead. Ilara and Elias spent the next 2 days combing through dusty boxes and microfiche reels at the cavernous, barely staffed Willow Creek Building Department archives. The process was painstakingly slow, punctuated by moments of despair as each lead proved fruitless. The festival was drawing closer, the pressure mounting. Then, on the 3rd day, just as Ilara was about to suggest giving up, Elias let out a triumphant gasp. Ilara, look at this! He pointed to a faded file, tucked away in a mislabeled box marked Miscellaneous 2015-2016. It was a carbon copy of the official accident report for the Sterling construction site where her father had died. Ilara's hands trembled as she took the report. Her father's name, Thomas Vance, was clearly visible. But as she read the details, her blood ran cold. The report clearly stated that the scaffolding collapse was due to gross negligence and the use of substandard, uncertified materials, specifically ignored by a site supervisor, Mr. David Miller, despite repeated warnings from workers. The original settlement had attributed the accident to unforeseen equipment malfunction and operator error on her father's part. It was a complete fabrication, a deliberate lie. And then, another chilling detail. A handwritten notation on the report. Copy requested by A. Sterling Jr. 03/12/2017. Alistair Sterling himself, just months before her mother signed the NDA, had personally requested this damning report. He knew. He knew her father's death was due to his family's negligence, and he had deliberately suppressed the truth to protect his company and secure a quiet settlement. The revelation was a gut punch, transforming Ilara's fear into a searing, righteous anger. This wasn't just about a debt. It was about a profound injustice, a life stolen, a family silenced, all for the sake of profit and reputation. Sterling wasn't just powerful, He was a manipulator, a liar. Elias saw the fire in her eyes. This changes everything, Ilara. This proves fraudulent concealment. This could invalidate the NDA. This gives us leverage. He carefully packaged the document, his movements precise. We take this to Marcus, immediately. As they drove back to the city, the silence in the car was heavy with the weight of their discovery. The storm was gathering. Ilara felt a strange mix of terror and exhilarating resolve. She had found her battleground, and the weapon was truth. But she knew that Sterling, cornered and exposed, would not go down without a brutal fight. He had underestimated her once. He would not make that mistake again. Just as they reached the city limits, Elias's phone buzzed. He answered, his expression turning grave. "What? Are you sure?" he asked into the phone, his eyes meeting Ilara's with a look of stunned disbelief. He hung up, his face pale. "That was my assistant. The venue for the Summer Arts Festival, the main stage. It's been double booked." "No, that's not right," he corrected himself, his voice tight. "The booking for your performance, Ilara, has been mysteriously cancelled, indefinitely, just moments ago." Sterling, it seemed, had anticipated their next move and struck first, harder than ever. He wasn't just watching. He was actively dismantling her platform, cutting off her voice before she could even raise it. The fight had escalated into a full-blown war, and now, without a stage, Ilara felt her fragile hope begin to crumble. "The booking for your performance, Ilara, has been mysteriously cancelled, indefinitely, just moments ago." Elias's words struck Ilara like a physical blow. Her stomach dropped, a cold wave of despair washing over her. The accident report, the fraudulent concealment, the fragile hope they had just unearthed. It all seemed to crumble into dust. Without the festival, without a stage, where would her voice be heard? Sterling had anticipated their counterattack, and in a single, ruthless move, had cut off her oxygen. "Cancelled?" Ilara whispered, the word tasting like ash in her mouth. "But how? We had a signed contract." Elias slammed his hand on the steering wheel, a rare show of frustration. Sterling. He must have pulled strings, pressured the festival board. He probably leveraged his philanthropic donations, threatened to withdraw funding. He can be incredibly insidious. They claimed a scheduling conflict, a clerical error, but I know better. His jaw was tight with anger. He's trying to silence you, Ilara, to break your spirit before you can even begin. He wants you to think there's no way out, no platform. The weight of it all descended on Ilara, heavy and suffocating. Her job, her practice space, and now her only public opportunity, all gone, systematically dismantled by one man's vindictive power. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice hollow. "Without the festival, what's the point of the accident report? No one will hear it. He wins." Elias turned to her, his gaze intense, unwavering. "No, Ilara. We don't let him win. We find another stage, a bigger one if necessary. This isn't just about your performance anymore. It's about exposing Sterling, about securing justice for your father. Your music is the medium, but the message is justice." They drove straight to Marcus Finch's office, the accident report clutched tightly in Ilara's hand. Marcus listened to Elias's update about the festival cancellation, his expression grim but resolute. "This is precisely the kind of intimidation tactic I expected," Marcus stated calmly. "He's making good on his threats, but it also strengthens our case for duress, for his pattern of malicious behavior. And the accident report. This is gold, Ilara. This proves intentional wrongdoing, fraudulent concealment. It invalidates the NDA. But if I have no platform, Ilara interjected, how do I bring this truth to light? He's taken my stage. Marcus leaned forward, a glint in his eye. Then we create a new stage, Ilara, and we use the law to do it. We draft an official letter outlining the fraudulent concealment and demanding a public retraction of the NDA. We inform Sterling that unless he publicly acknowledges the truth of your father's accident and issues an apology, we will take this evidence to the press, to the state attorney's office, and seek legal action for wrongful death and corporate cover-up. We make it clear that his reputation and his company are on the line. Ilara's heart pounded with a mix of terror and thrilling possibility. The press? Marcus, that would be huge and dangerous. Extremely, Marcus agreed, but also incredibly powerful. Sterling cares above all else about his image, his control. Exposing him publicly for this would be catastrophic for his carefully cultivated persona. It would open him up to scrutiny on all fronts. This is a high-stakes gamble, Ilara, but it's our best shot at justice. And your music, your story, woven together, will be the undeniable proof. The decision weighed heavily on Ilara. It meant stepping into the blinding glare of public attention, reliving her father's tragedy, and facing Sterling's inevitable, brutal retaliation. But the image of Lily, her hopeful face, her dreams for a future free from the shadows of poverty and injustice, solidified her resolve. "I'll do it," she said, her voice firm, resolute. "Let's send the letter." Marcus immediately set to work, drafting a terse, legally precise document that laid out the accusations with undeniable clarity. Elias, meanwhile, began reaching out to his contacts in the media, preparing for the possibility that Sterling would refuse to cooperate. They knew they had to control the narrative, to present Ilara's story with integrity and impact. The letter was delivered to Sterling Innovations the next day. The silence that followed was deafening, more unnerving than any direct threat. Ilara spent the days in a heightened state of anxiety, rehearsing her music with fervent intensity, each note a prayer, a defiant scream. She worked odd jobs, cobbled together by sympathetic friends and neighbors in Willow Creek, but the financial strain was immense. Lily, noticing her sister's stress, started asking questions Ilara found increasingly difficult to deflect. Then, 2 days before the deadline Marcus had set, the phone rang. It was Sterling, his voice dripping with icy menace. "Miss Vance," he purred, "I received your audacious letter and your lawyer's threats. Do you truly believe you can win against me? You have no idea of the power I wield, and you are playing a very dangerous game with your sister's future." Ilara's hand tightened around the phone. "My father's death was not an accident, Mr. Sterling. It was negligence, and you covered it up. The truth will come out, with or without your cooperation." Sterling's laugh was cold and dismissive. "The truth? Oh, I assure you, Miss Vance, there are many versions of the truth, and mine is always the one that prevails. But let's be clear. If you choose to pursue this reckless path, you will regret it. I can make your life, and your sister's, a living hell. I can ensure she never gets into that prestigious school she dreams of. I can make sure your mother loses every last penny she has. You want to fight? Fine. But know the price. It will be everything." The threat against Lily, so explicit and cruel, sent a cold shard of fear through Ilara's heart. He was attacking her most vulnerable point. "You won't win, Mr. Sterling," Ilara retorted, her voice shaking but defiant. "The truth is on our side." "Is it?" Sterling's voice hardened. "I've already started. Your old piano, the one your father gave you, It seems to have met with an unfortunate accident, a regrettable mishap. A little reminder, perhaps, of what else I can touch. He hung up abruptly, leaving Alara gasping for air, a sickening dread washing over her. She rushed home, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm. As she burst through the door, her eyes immediately darted to the living room. Her beloved upright piano, her father's gift, her sanctuary, lay on its side, splintered wood and shattered keys scattered across the floor. It was a scene of utter devastation, a brutal personal attack designed to crush her spirit. Tears welled in her eyes, not just for the piano, but for the desecration of her memories, her father's legacy. This wasn't just a threat. It was an act of war, a direct assault on her soul. Sterling wasn't playing games. He was playing for keeps, and he was willing to destroy everything she held dear to keep her silent. And now, more than ever, Ilara knew she couldn't back down. The stakes had become terrifyingly personal. Her beloved upright piano, her father's gift, lay on its side. Splintered wood and shattered keys scattered across the floor. Ilara stared at the devastation, her breath catching in her throat. The sight was a physical blow, a desecration that went beyond mere property damage. It was a direct, brutal assault on her memories, on her father's legacy, on the very heart of her connection to music. Hot, angry tears streamed down her face. But beneath the grief, a cold, hard resolve began to form. This wasn't just about proving Sterling wrong anymore. It was about honoring her father, protecting Lily, and reclaiming her own voice from the man who sought to silence it completely. Elias and Marcus arrived quickly, their faces grim. Elias, seeing the shattered piano, let out a low curse. "He's gone too far. This isn't just intimidation, Ilara. It's vandalism, a clear act of malice. This adds to our case. He's revealing his true colors." Marcus, ever the pragmatist, carefully surveyed the scene, taking photos with his phone. "This is actionable, Ilara. We can file a police report, though Sterling will deny everything. But it will show his pattern of behavior, his desperation to silence you." He paused, meeting her tear-filled eyes. "Are you still in this, Ilara? He's hitting you where it hurts. He'll keep coming." Ilara wiped her tears with the back of her hand, her chin lifting. "I'm in it," she stated, her voice trembling but firm. "More than ever. He destroyed my past, but he won't destroy my future or Lily's. We send the story to the press, Marcus. Now." The decision was made. Marcus worked through the night, compiling a press release that meticulously detailed the fraudulent concealment of the accident report, Sterling's history of intimidation, and the recent vandalism of Ilara's home. Elias leveraged his contacts, ensuring the story would land on the desks of influential journalists who cared about social justice. The next morning, the storm broke. The Willow Creek Gazette ran the story on its front page, a stark exposé. Millionaire magnate accused of cover-up in fatal accident silences victim's family. Regional and national news outlets picked up the story, fueled by Elias's persistent outreach. The internet buzzed. Alistair Sterling, long accustomed to glowing profiles and unquestioning deference, was suddenly facing a torrent of public outrage and accusations. His carefully constructed world began to crack. Investors called, questioning the stability of Sterling Innovations in light of the scandal. Board members expressed grave concerns. His philanthropic endeavors, once lauded, now seemed tainted. His phone rang off the hook, not with adulation, but with demands for answers. Sterling, furious and cornered, launched his counterattack. His legal team immediately issued a scathing statement, denying all allegations, accusing Alara of extortion and malicious defamation, and threatening to sue her and her lawyers into oblivion. He used his media contacts to plant negative stories, questioning Alara's credibility, subtly suggesting she was a disgruntled employee looking for a handout, capitalizing on a long-past family tragedy. The backlash was swift and brutal. Alara received hate mail, online abuse. Her privacy was shattered. Paparazzi, suddenly interested in the waitress who dared to challenge a titan, staked out her house. Lily, confused and frightened by the sudden media circus, became withdrawn, her questions turning from innocent curiosity to genuine fear. "What's happening, Alara? Why are people saying mean things about you?" she asked one evening, her eyes wide with worry. It tore Alara apart to see Lily's distress. "It's okay, sweet pea," Alara would reassure her, holding her close. "We're fighting for what's right. Sometimes that gets a little messy." But the words felt hollow even to her own ears. Through it all, Elias and Marcus remained her steadfast anchors. They shielded her from the worst of the media frenzy, advised her on every legal maneuver, and reminded her of the purpose behind their fight. "This is the hardest part, Alara," Elias reiterated, his voice calm amidst the chaos. "The moment Sterling realizes he's losing control. But you have the truth, and that's more powerful than all his money." As the festival date loomed, a new wave of pressure mounted. The original venue remained firm in its cancellation, terrified of Sterling's wrath. But Elias refused to give up. He worked tirelessly, pulling strings, calling favors, his own reputation now on the line. He knew Alara needed a stage, not just for her music, but for her story to resonate fully. Then, a surprising offer came from an unexpected source: the Willow Creek Community Center, the same place where Alara had spent her childhood, where her father had helped build the very stage she would now grace. The center director, a kind woman named Mrs. Gable, had been moved by Alara's story. "We may not be the big city festival, Alara," she'd said, "but we believe in you, and this community stands with you." It was a smaller stage, a more intimate setting, but it was hers. It was home. Elias and Marcus immediately agreed. It was perfect. It brought the fight back to where it began, giving it a deeply personal, resonant context. Elias worked day and night to publicize the new venue, inviting all the journalists who had covered the initial story, framing it as a defiant act of community support against corporate bullying. The night of the performance arrived. The Willow Creek Community Center was packed, overflowing with people, not just local residents, but a surprising number of journalists, photographers, and even a few of Elias's influential contacts from the city. The atmosphere was electric, a palpable blend of anticipation, solidarity, and a quiet tension. Lily was there, nestled in the front row with her mother, her eyes shining with pride and a little apprehension. Alara walked onto the stage, the familiar scent of old wood and worn velvet a comforting presence. She saw Lily's worried but hopeful face, her mother's fragile smile, and then her gaze swept over the crowd, landing on the back row. There, silhouetted against the exit, stood Alistair Sterling. His presence was a dark, menacing shadow, a final, desperate attempt to intimidate her. He hadn't just come to watch. He had come to witness her failure, her capitulation. Ilara's heart pounded, a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. This was it, her last stand. She sat at the piano, a beautiful, newly restored, upright piano, a gift from Elias and Marcus, a silent testament to their unwavering belief. Her hands, calloused and strong, hovered over the keys. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. This wasn't just a performance, it was a declaration. And as she lowered her hands, ready to play the first notes of her father's melody, the entire room held its breath, waiting for the truth to sing. Ilara's hands, calloused and strong, hovered over the keys of the newly restored upright piano. The air in the Willow Creek Community Center crackled with anticipation, 1,000 eyes fixed on her. In the back, Alistair Sterling stood like a dark sentinel, his presence a chilling reminder of the battle she was fighting. But this was her stage, her community, her truth. And as her fingers finally descended, the first notes rang out, clear and resonant, a melody born of heartache and fierce, unyielding love. It was her father's melody, the same one that had first stunned the guests at Blackwood Manor. But this time, it was different. It carried the weight of the shattered piano, the lost job, the terror of Sterling's threats against Lily. Each note was a testament to resilience, a whisper of Willow Creek's enduring spirit, and a defiant scream against injustice. Her playing wasn't flawless, perhaps, but it was raw, authentic, every emotion laid bare. The audience was transfixed, some leaning forward, others wiping away tears. Ilara's eyes, lost in the music, saw not the faces of the crowd, but the ghost of her father, smiling proudly, and the unwavering light in Lily's hopeful gaze. She wove through her father's compositions, then transitioned seamlessly into one of her own, a soaring, melancholic piece she'd written in the quiet hours after his death, imbued with a longing for justice she hadn't dared to name until now. The music built, a powerful crescendo of sound, then softened, ending on a single lingering chord that hung in the air, vibrating with a profound silence. When her hands finally lifted from the keys, the applause didn't erupt immediately. There was a pause, a collective breath held, as the audience absorbed the emotional impact. Then, a single clap started, then another, quickly swelling into a thunderous ovation. It wasn't just for the music. It was for the courage, the vulnerability, the defiant strength that had poured from Ilara's soul. Lily and her mother were on their feet, their faces beaming through tears. Elias and Marcus, too, stood, their eyes filled with pride. Ilara rose, her heart pounding, but a newfound calm settled over her. She walked to the microphone, her gaze sweeping across the room. She felt the weight of the moment, the years of suppressed truth pressing down on her. And then, her eyes locked onto Alistair Sterling in the back row. He stood rigid, his face a mask of barely contained fury, but there was also a flicker of something else. Fear. He saw that his power was failing, that her voice, once silenced, now resonated with an undeniable force. "Thank you," Ilara began, her voice clear, steady, and amplified by the microphone. "Thank you all for being here. You just heard my music, a gift from my father. But tonight I want to share a different kind of truth." She paused, taking a deep breath. 7 years ago, my father, Thomas Vance, died in an accident on a construction site owned by Sterling Construction. We were told it was an unforeseen malfunction, a tragic accident. My mother, reeling from grief and desperate to provide for her children, signed a non-disclosure agreement, silencing her in exchange for a settlement. A hush fell over the crowd, a collective intake of breath. Journalists scribbled furiously. "But it wasn't an accident," Ilara continued, her voice gaining strength, steeling herself against the memory. "We recently discovered the original accident report, buried for years. It states clearly that my father's death was due to gross negligence and substandard materials, willfully ignored by the site supervisor. Alistair Sterling, who now owns Sterling Innovations, personally requested a copy of this damning report months before my mother signed that NDA. He knew the truth. He buried it. Gasps rippled through the audience. A few people began to murmur angrily. And when I dared to play his piano, Ilara's voice rose. When I dared to find my voice again, he tried to silence me. He got me fired from my job. He had my festival performance canceled. And he even sent men to destroy my father's piano in my home. A cruel act of intimidation designed to break my spirit and threaten my family. A wave of outrage surged through the room. Shouts of "Shame on Sterling" and "Justice for Thomas Vance" erupted. Alistair Sterling, his face purple with rage, began to push his way through the crowd, clearly intending to make a dramatic exit. But Marcus Finch and Elias Thorne had anticipated this. Two uniformed officers, whom Marcus had quietly informed about Sterling's history of intimidation and the vandalism, now stood by the exit, observing him. "This isn't just about my family," Ilara declared, her voice ringing out, commanding the attention of every person in the room. "This is about every person silenced by power, every truth buried for profit. Tonight, my music is my protest. My truth is my weapon. And with your help, we can ensure that Alistair Sterling is held accountable, not just for my father's death, but for the countless others whose lives he has trampled on." The crowd roared, a powerful chorus of support. Flashbulbs popped, cameras rolled. Sterling, seeing the police officers, hesitated, then, utterly defeated, slumped back into the shadows near the exit, trapped and exposed. His reign of fear had been broken, not by legal might or corporate maneuvering, but by the undeniable power of a woman's voice, amplified by a community's solidarity. After the performance, Ilara was mobbed. Journalists clamored for interviews. Elias and Marcus worked tirelessly, protecting her, directing the narrative, ensuring the momentum for justice continued. Lily, her eyes no longer wide with fear but shining with fierce pride, ran into Ilara's arms. "You did it, Ilara. You told the truth." Later that night, back in their quiet home, Ilara held Lily close. The small house still bore the scars of Sterling's wrath, the splintered remains of her father's piano, a stark reminder of their journey. But now, it was also a symbol of their victory. The media storm would continue, the legal battles would be long, but the tide had turned. Sterling's carefully constructed image was shattered, his power deeply compromised. Within weeks, new developments followed. Sterling Innovations faced multiple investigations. Elias, leveraging the national attention, secured Ilara a contract with a respected music label and an offer to teach piano at a prestigious arts academy. The festival, chastened by public opinion, extended a new invitation, this time to headline. Lily, with her sister's story making headlines, received a full scholarship offer, her dream of Juilliard suddenly within reach. Life in Willow Creek, for Ilara and Lily, would never be the same. The quiet days of waitressing were over, replaced by a future brimming with music, purpose, and the profound satisfaction of having fought for justice. Ilara sat at the restored upright, Elias's gift, her fingers gently caressing the keys. Her father's melody, once a quiet lament, now swelled with hope, a testament to the enduring power of truth and the beautiful, defiant music of a second chance. The fight wasn't entirely over, but Ilara knew, with every fiber of her being, that she would never be silenced again. The echo of truth, once a whisper, would now sing. Ilara's journey from a humble waitress to a defiant artist reminds us of the extraordinary power hidden within ordinary lives. Her story is a testament to the fact that truth, no matter how deeply buried, will always find a way to surface, and that injustice, however mighty, can be challenged by the unwavering courage of a single voice. We witnessed Ilara, stripped of her job, her precious piano, and her platform, yet refusing to be silenced. Instead, she found strength in her community, in the belief of a few dedicated allies, and most profoundly, in the soul-stirring melodies that became her most potent weapon. This tale of resilience teaches us that our past does not define our future, and that a second chance, earned through grit and integrity, can lead to a destiny far grander than we ever imagined. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest adversities forge the strongest spirits, and that standing up for what's right, even when the odds seem insurmountable, can inspire a tidal wave of change. So, as Ilara's music echoes, let it be a call to find your own voice, to never surrender your truth, and to remember that your story, your spirit, truly matters. If Ilara's remarkable journey has touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We're dedicated to bringing you more powerful, meaningful stories that inspire, uplift, and remind us all of the incredible strength of the human spirit. Thank you for listening.